Thanks a lot for the invitation. And yes, I'm leading the consulting company, Meyer GmbH, but we are working closely together with a lawyer company. So I think the special thing we are doing is that in each project, one lawyer and one scientist is involved. So we are supporting food business operators from scratch in recipe development. So if it's a borderline, if it's a food or medicinal product, and maybe if it's a food, do you have a novel food, because it's getting worse and worse with these novel foods. Over the whole life cycle of the product, this is mainly based on the lawyer side. So as I just said, scientist and lawyer, but health claims, labeling, that's more on the side of the lawyers. And at the end of the product cycle, let me say, we have the crisis cases. And that's what we have on a daily business, 8 cases, 8 up to 10 cases every day, because we are supporting food business operators over whole Europe and also international, together with our external network partners. So, but in Europe, it's the most intensive work. And this is also today mainly the part of the presentation. How do I deal with a crisis as I have a crisis in hand? We heard a lot about prevention today, but I will talk about the crisis case if it really arrives. Based on our experience, we have 4 steps of crisis. And it's more or less escalation stages. The first thing is company itself is involved with the lab internally. That's an easy thing. You get a result, you are above an action limit or above a maximum residue level. You can decide internally how to deal with it. Do you want to maybe withdraw the products? Do you want to block the products? It's really, you have time, you can think about the facts. The second escalation stage is more or less, you have an external lab report. And the product is already on the market, and in Germany it's more or less a stress factor, because the private labs have the obligation to notify in case it is not safe, the product. And this means you have not only your internal source, you also have the external lab to talk to. And if it's going worse and worse, you have already the competent authority from the lab involved. You are also your competent authority. You have 4 players on board. And in Germany, we have the legal obligation to notify, and that makes us more intensive to go forward, to speak with the lab, and to agree on the way forward, and maybe not to notify, or to wait with a notification in order to have a clear plan how to go forward and to communicate with the authority. It's also important to know that the lab maybe wants to notify, but it's not in need of notifying things. So here starts the first procedure of communication with the lab. How could you prevent that labs notify something? If you send in samples, it would be good to anonymize these reports, not to send in a batch number or a clear statement that the product is on the market. If you have the product only sent in within a number and giving the food matrices, then the lab is not able to give all the information to the competent authority, and so it's also not necessary to notify, or you get more time in order to react. The third stage of escalation is the competent authority comes already in-house and gives you a complaint, and you have to react immediately. We had last week a very stressful also crisis with an infant formula manufacturer, and the whole batches should be blocked in all the supermarket retailers over whole Europe. The competent authority requested, and it was a very rapid response necessary. including a risk assessment, what was involved, and what is the substance inside, is it really necessary to block all the things, do we really have necessity to set it in the RAS notification, or could we maybe have time to react and time to give them more information. At the end of the day, we immediately reacted, and only one batch was blocked and all the other things were released without giving notifications in RAS system and so on. The fourth escalation stage is if, for instance, a raw material is already notified in the RAS system. And yeah, worst case, you are a German company producing fruit juices, and you have a raw material supplier in the Netherlands, and for instance, they are detected aflatoxins in almonds. And they detected that the aflatoxin maximum levels is above the maximum limit in the regulation 2023/915, and immediately notified, because in the Netherlands, you know, it's very stressful. You have to notify the competent authorities within 4 hours. And yeah, if the NVWA decided to put it in the RAS system, then they are requesting all the supplier lists, and immediately within 1 day, you have, for instance, the German competent authority on your door asking what is the raw material, what is the batch in which of the products you have manufactured with, and you have to block all the things. It could be the case, and we have several cases that some member states were then involved. So you have suppliers, you have the retailers, you have a lot of competent authorities, labs, suppliers, and manufacturers, which you have to have on board, to have the communication in parallel in order to solve the issue and maybe to withdraw the product, and if necessary, really to recall. But what to do? I think this crisis stages gives you a little bit a feeling of how stressful you have to act, what is the time of reaction, but the most important thing is you have to do a risk assessment. Do I have really a problem or not? Because if you have some contaminant inside, it does not mean immediately that you have to do a withdrawal or recall. However, competent authorities are very complicated also. This is especially here in Bavaria. I give you only a picture what is in Germany in the south area, the thing. We have a lot of stages of competent authorities which are relevant for the communication. We have 96 district administrative authorities and 7 governments above and the state ministry. And in between you have the LGL, for instance, in Bavaria. This is the authority which is doing the risk assessment. And this is also a special case in Bavaria. You have a control authority responsible especially for complex food business operators. This means, for instance, infant food manufacturers, meat, milk, and so on. If you deal with one of them, you have to be really clear who you speak to, because sometimes you have lawyers, sometimes you have butchers, sometimes you have food chemists, and it's very important to know who is sitting on the other side. How should you react? How should you simplify the speech? Should you bring a detailed legal assessment in behind? Are you giving a risk assessment really with health-based guidance values, or are you coming with non-observed effect levels from animal studies? So it's really important to see who is sitting on the other side and who is reading your assessment, and what is the best to write the information. What is the best way to write it? Or, yeah, but not to write it, that's the other thing. We have, it is the best way not to write anything. You have to have them on video conferences from competent authorities, because there are several reasons. You are catching them better way because you see their reactions, you know, did I understand or not? And the second thing is avoid reading, because we have transparency regulation in place. We have public access to documents regulation in Europe in place. And in Germany, we have this Customer Information Act. And we have had several cases where NGOs, for instance, requested the whole documents from competent authorities, and also competitors over the PAT regulation, the European regulation, requested the whole document. You're submitting confidentiality to EFSA, to Commission. This is usual, you know this maybe, because you're also submitting dossiers to EFSA and Commission. You have a confidential version, you have a redacted version, and you're thinking, okay, it's transparency, it's confidential, they will keep all the things under confidentiality. Oh, not so the right way, because we have this public access to document regulation, and anybody can asking any competent authority to give the whole information outside. And then the competent authorities have to review all their things and have to go deep down whether they will provide this information or not. So please do not give a lot of information in a written way to competent authorities. It's better to have video conferences to clarify the case and not to submit everything in detail in a written format. Next case, I just show you a case we had, cyanide in almonds, because that's the basis. Do I have really a problem or not? The basis is risk assessment. So the assessment of the whole case is not only the communication, that's the end of the thing. You have to start with the risk assessment, then to conduct management, and then to do the communication. What was happened here? A consumer complaint was done. There was a mother, the child eat a nut raisin mix and had symptoms like stomach ache, sore throat, and breathing problems. And the mother sent the child to a physician, and they said, okay, yeah, something wrong. And then the authority came on board and took the package where the child has eaten the almonds from. And it has a slightly bitter behavior. And then the competent authority worked again in the retailer and took a further sample, a closed package, and analyzed both on cyanide amount. And in the first row, you can see the amount of cyanide detected in the already broken sample, the complaint sample, with 50 milligram per kilogram. And in the tracking sample, there were already 147 milligram per kilogram. And how's dealing with cyanide? Cyanide is, you know, is very poisoning, but it's usually bound in plants and almonds and apricots and so on, because it's glycoside bound. And it's two substances together, so cyanide and the glucoside. And if you eat, for instance, an almond, a bitter almond, then you destroy the cells of the almond itself, and in the cells are an enzyme which destroy these two substances. So you have the cyanide free. And in addition, you have the enzyme in the mouse, which is also cutting this bound. So cyanide is setting free in the mouse. This is usually not a problem in small amounts, because everyone has eaten bitter almonds, I think. It smells a little bit not so good. But we have an internal system which can react against it, but only to a maximum amount. If it's too much of cyanide, then we are getting problems like the child had, the sore throat, stomach ache, and so on. So this means there is a specific amount which is okay, and above this specific amount, you're getting health risk. Until 2015, we had no data about this. And then our German Federal Risk Assessment Institute had some people asking, do you want to attend to a study in-house? And then 15 people attended in our Risk Assessment Institute, and they established a health-based guidance value, a so-called acute reference dose. This means this is a dosage which is okay to ingest one time daily. And on the right-hand side, you can see this dosage was exceeded. 147 over this acute reference dose and 485. So this product was definitely not safe. It has to be withdrawn, recalled, whole program. But what was the issue? And that is very important for the crisis cases for spot contaminants. Cyanide in almonds is a spot contaminant, as we have several in our contaminant regulation and also outside, like aflatoxin, mycotoxins, cyanide, and so on. And the issue here was that the supplier of these almonds has not sampled the almond in a representative manner. And this is the reason why the recall had to be conducted, because if the supplier had done, for instance, a 10 tons assessment of representative sampling according to regulation 401/2006, you know, this mycotoxins representative sampling regulation, then we would have been good card in hand to say, okay, this is only a single case, it's not representative, because on retailer level you only took 1 kilogram, but the supplier was not prepared. And they learned that on sweet almond trees, we also have 3 up to 8% of bitter almond on the trees, but you don't see it. So, and you cannot distinguish between bitter almonds and sweet almonds. So the real solution of this is to sample the whole raw material batch in a representative manner. And why do I mention this? Because in every crisis case, for each spot contaminant, you are discussing with competent authorities immediately about the issue, do you have the raw material sampled in a representative manner or not? I know we have discussions in place now. We will have the new regulations in place on the 1st of April 2023, 2782 and 2783. They are giving the representativeness of sampling for mycotoxins and plant toxins. And it's really in case of crisis to having the crisis in background, to know you have to do the representative sampling according to this regulation. Also, if stakeholder organizations are really forcing against it, and I know that Commission is just preparing a specific paper for auto controls for food business operators, it's good to do it, because otherwise you never will go out a crisis case without a withdrawal or recall if you do not have this representative sampling in hand. Second thing, with regard to contaminants, is to know that more than 50% of the maximum limits in the regulation, in the contaminant regulation, are not health-based. This means if you comply with your product with the maximum limit, the product is not safe for the consumer. This is the example here for nickel. Nickel is upcoming. The maximum regulations was voted positively on the 28th of February this year. So SCOPA voted positively. This means that now the Commission is translating the things, and it will be published, the amendment of the contaminant regulation, end of this year, beginning of next year. 2 of the maximum levels I just have displayed here. There will be a maximum level for fruit juices produced from passion fruits, cocoa fruits, small fruits, berry, and coconut water with 1 milligram nickel per kilogram. And the second one for the rest of the fruit juices, except the products above, with 0.25 milligram per kilogram. And just to display you that it's not safe, what is setting in the regulation, You can see it on EFSA's update risk assessment. I just have displayed here the health-based guidance value. For the general population, EFSA installed the tolerably daily intake with 13 microgram per kilogram body weight per day. And for the nickel-sensitive population, there was another way around. They have a margin of exposure. So what is important on the right-hand side? The tolerable daily intake is the intake which you can have on the whole life. And you can see for the fruit juices, small berries, it's above. It's 159% of the TDE. And the margin of exposure, it's a safety margin for the nickel-sensitive consumers, should be 30, and it's below 1. You can see that it's not safe. And this is very important for risk communication. If, in the future, competent authorities coming to you stating, okay, you are above this 1 milligram per kilogram limit, and you have to withdraw the product. Okay, clear. If under consideration of the measurement uncertainty, you are above of the maximum limit, you have to withdraw the product. But if the risk assessment body in cooperation is coming with risk assessment and telling you, okay, yeah, that's the usual thing, right? You have the risk assessment bodies, these are taking the samples. They are doing the risk assessment. They will come with the conclusion, it's not safe. You're definitely above the tolerable daily intake, and you are definitely low above the margin of exposure. It's not safe, do a recall immediately. But who is doing this job? They give this to your local authority is coming to you, and you should conduct a recall. No, it's not necessary, because already the maximum limit is not safe. And why do your local authority does not know this? Your local authority is not involved in management issues. This maximum limit are established not on EFSA assessments, which the local authorities have a look on. These maximum levels are established on management basis on European Commission. European Commission is gathering data together with the member states and is cutting the 90% yield data as Alara principle. And this value is taken and implemented into the regulation. And this is for a lot of contaminants the case. For peanuts, we would not longer eat peanuts with aflatoxins because it's safe. We would not have dark chocolate with cadmium, it's not safe. Yeah, but we have to meet on the management level side, but your local authority, which is discussing with you about withdrawals and recalls, is not aware of this fact. So it's very important to bring not only this focus on the one value which you have detected in your fruit juice, for instance. Instead, you have also to look at the regulation and to compare it. What is the management level behind? Okay, another case, a little bit microbiologic things. We had but I'm pharmacist, but it coming from the other side now. Listeria in salmon, smoked salmon. We have a lot of competent authorities dealing with these issues, with microbiological outbreaks. You know, maybe most important publications from EFSA in combination with our European Center of Disease Control, ECDC. If a European outbreak is published by them, then it's really, really worse, because otherwise they would not go with this issue. And this is one thing. And here you can see already, this is a German special picture here now. You have a lot of cases from patients on the left-hand side. And what is going on? The patients eating this salmon and getting Listeria are going to the physicians. The physicians are getting samples according to Zoonosenverordnung, it's called in Germany. And they are notifying the medicinal competent authorities. This is the one thing. And on the other hand, the local authorities and competent authorities going into the retailers and getting the samples. That's the other thing. And then they're matching the things. And as you can see on the right-hand side, does not matter that we not can see the numbering. They are doing whole genome sequencing. And it's more or less kind of hobby from our competent authorities now, that they are gathering the data, doing whole genome sequencing, and matching. And this is very important, and from my point of view also will be the future, because the food business operators has to go also this way. Otherwise, the competent authority will go forward, and the food business operators will every time one step beyond. And this is very important, and we just heard already a lot of this, and especially the case from Coca-Cola was also very demonstrating this thing. It's good to know what's going on, and I think it's just here repeating what we had this morning and what you had yesterday. What do I have? What is a strain? Who exactly is a strain? Do I have it seen before? What is it present in your facility, and how can I get rid of it? And this is exactly the question what also competent authorities is asking you. If you're detecting salmonella and serotyping in the final product, and then you are thinking about the fact how to deal with it, and if you're located, worst case, in the Netherlands and have to notify within 4 hours, then you have to bring up a concept, a story, and to show definitely what is going on, what is the reason, what is the root cause, and how do you want to deal with it, and how you make sure that it never happen again. And I think, yeah, that's very important task where I also learned a lot today, and that's also my last slide. Thanks a lot.